fairness, dignity, respect. And this is a guy that never stopped fighting. He's been fighting for the last 50 years. He's fighting for us now. He knows what's here at stake in the state of Connecticut. And I want you to give him a rousing Connecticut welcome, Vice President Joe Biden. Folks, how are you? Good to see you all. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Joe Biden, and Chris Dodd's my best friend. I tell you what. It's great to be back in Connecticut, and I tell you what, I remember the days when there were Republicans as well as Democrats who had the same values set in the Congress. We disagreed on substantive issues, but you know, the currency always was in the Senate since I got there as a 29-year-old kid was that your word is your bond. And one of the last guys who everyone could count on that was exactly, who'd do exactly what he said was Chris Dodd. And I really mean it. But you got two senators behind me who are cut from the same mold, and we need more. And we need more, quite frankly, in both parties. You know, Senator Blumenthal, he's heard me say this before. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, you do me a favor, and I appreciate it. Do my kid a favor, and never forget it. My deceased son, Beau Biden, was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware, the putative nominee for governor, and a war hero, the Bronze Star, Conspicuous Service Medal, spent a year in Iraq and 8 months in Kosovo, and the person he admired most and helped him the most when he got elected as a young Attorney General was Attorney General Blumenthal. And so as my colleagues can tell you, we have an expression in the Senate. If you excuse the point of personal privilege, I just wanted to acknowledge that and how much I appreciate it. And Chris, I met Chris when he was a congressman, and I met him, we spent some time at Sandy Hook, and I watched him. The last time we had any serious gun control, rational gun control, was a bill I wrote that eliminated assault weapons and also limited the number of bullets could be in a magazine and a whole range of other things. And I watched him. I watched him meet with all those parents like I did. I watched him meet with those kids. And you could literally see the resolve on his face. I mean this sincerely. You could see it being seared into his soul. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most significant, consequential fighter we have in the United States of America to deal with this situation. And I tell you, you can beat the NRA. I beat them. You can beat them. Look. And folks, you got one hell of a group of elected officials, and you've got a hell of a Democratic ticket. No, you really do. Ned and Susan. By the way, the first decision the new gov made was to pick a lieutenant governor. Damn, he's got good judgment. He's got really good judgment. You're going to see one hell of a team there. Thank you. And folks, I want to begin by addressing what you've seen recently in the news about all those pipe bombs and all of the I don't know how to characterize it, the sense of hate and terror that seems to be gripping us. You know, we don't yet have all the facts about who's behind it, although there's been an arrest made, and there's some initial reason to believe they may have the right fellow. But you know, this country has to come together. This division that exists, this hatred, this ugliness, it really has to come to an end. And what I hope my friends on the other side, as well as Democrats, understand, that words matter. Words matter. And sometimes my guess is you feel precariously close to the words of William Butler Yeats a century ago when he said, "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." Our political opponents are not our enemies, but there is such passion. This passion is out there. It's so misplaced. The press is not the enemy of the people. Although I would, after over 40 years of holding public office, I'd go back and say they made mistakes, but the truth of the matter is, they get it right overwhelmingly time. Even the criticisms they get about me, they get it right. And folks, I know it sounds corny, but before we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we're Americans. And I mean this sincerely. This is not about politics. I hope and I pray our leaders are prepared to work to lower the temperature in our public dialogue. I have faith that most will be inclined to do it, but we've got to insist on it. Because, folks, we're so much... No, don't clap. Thank you. I know it's strange for politicians. They don't clap for me, but I really want to make this crystal clear. We're so much better than this. We just have to remember who we are, what we stand for as a nation. You know, I've campaigned this year all around the country. I've been one of the few people who's gone into rural districts in Kentucky and Montana and North Dakota, and as well as inner cities in the East and the West Coast. And I find I've campaigned for congressional candidates, governors, lieutenant governors, state legislators. And if there's anything I've seen, is that there is an overwhelming yearning on the part of the American people to have women and men of character, just simple character in public office. People who say what they mean and then do what they say. Women and men who treat everyone with respect and never belittle anyone else. Men and women who tell the truth, who are authentic, who have integrity. If we do this, I have no doubt we can restore the damaged stature of America at home and abroad. I'm here because you have a slate of candidates who fit that bill, and I'm not being solicitous. Connecticut builds everything from jet engines and nuclear submarines, attracting new industries. But what you've built candidates who are real, who are authentic, who mean what they say, who don't belittle people. You know, I know the history of this state, and what an incredible but bright future still holds. Ned is a man of real honor and decency, who understands something I never thought I'd have to say, but I have to say it all around the country. Understands that what we all used to believe, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things given half a chance. Extraordinary things. A businessman who's worked to create jobs so people can stay in their beloved state, spent his entire career attracting jobs and investment in the state. And Johanna, a woman with a backbone like a ramrod. No, I mean it. She reminds me of my sister and my wife. You know, you can always tell you women who work with the man you work with, the one who really respects you and teaches an equal, take a look at his mother. Not a joke. Take a look at his sister. I'll guarantee you they're strong in principle. You know, Johanna understands what a lot of folks in Connecticut and around the world are going through. Her mom, like so many moms, battled addiction, wasn't able to take care of her. She went to live with her grandma in Berkeley Heights Housing Project in Waterbury. I've been to that project. And her grandmother brought her up right, in spite of everything. She went working nights, going to community college. She got her bachelor's and master's degrees and decided to be a teacher. Turned out she was pretty damn good at it. By the way, Johanna, I'm married to a teacher too. Was the only second lady in American history to ever work full time. She's still teaching as I speak. 15 credits a semester. And she's down in Baltimore right now fighting for women's equality. And by the way, when I left the Senate, when I left the vice presidency, I took a job as a full professor at the University of Pennsylvania in the hope that the mail would stop coming as Dr. and Vice President Biden. But it's still coming that way. Nothing's changed. Look, after 15 years of teaching history and government in Waterbury Public Schools, Johanna was named Teacher of the Year here in the city, Teacher of the Year in Connecticut. And then I got to meet her when she was named Teacher of the Year of the United States of America. I say about my Jill, teaching is not what she does, it's who she is. Look, all these people have real character. They know this election, and you should know, this election is unlike any you participated in, not a joke. No matter how young or how old you are, this election is about a lot more than politics. About a lot more than politics. It's about the character of our country. It's about who we are as Americans. You know, unlike any other country in the world, we're not organized the way the rest of the world is organized. David Brooks writes a column. He said people for the last millennia have organized in one of three ways. They've organized based on tribe, religion, or on ideals. America is literally, not figuratively, the most unique country in the world. You cannot define for me what an American is based on ethnicity, religion, race. You can't do it other than on ideals. Not a joke. We hold these truths. Sounds corny. We hold these truths self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their. We don't always live up to it, but we've never given up on it. We have never given up on it. David Brooks, the conservative columnist, I think is brilliant in what he's been writing lately. He says there's an invisible fabric, an invisible moral fabric that holds up all societies. And it's made up of certain basic norms, treating people with decency and respect, giving hate no safe harbor, leaving no one behind, committing to something bigger than yourself, literally reaching out. It's these values that have always held us together as a people, and literally, not figuratively, defined us as a nation. Many of you have traveled around the world, and I, like Chris, have spent the bulk of my life doing American foreign policy. I've been all over the world. I've been in over 100 nations. And we're sometimes viewed as the naive people because we have leaders who used to talk in terms of fairness, use words like fairness, decency, honor, respect. They're the words our diplomats used to use. Think about why we're viewed, though, also as the ugly American. Because in America, we believe anything's possible. I've spent, as Chris knows and Richard knows, I spent more time with Xi Jinping of China than any world leader. I've spent hours and hours with just he and I in private dinners because his predecessor and mine, boss, Barack, wanted us to get to know one another. And I remember I was in a town called Chengdu, about 12 million people on the Tibetan plateau. And I just had an interpreter, and he had an interpreter, having dinner. And he turned to me, and he said, and I'm being deadly earnest, he said, "Can you define America for me?" I said, "Yes, I can. In one word. And I mean this. Possibilities. We're the only nation in the world." Not a joke. Because we were raised, most of us, to believe anything was possible. Anything was possible. And we meant it. We meant it. You know, George Will described last year at the National Constitution Center, where I'm the chairman in Philadelphia, he said this new phony populism that's going on right now, he said, it's to give majority rule priority over liberty, over rights, over due process. And when they conflict, and they frequently, inevitably will, with majority impulses. And then they went on to talk about it's to give way to the abuse of power. You know, we used to be the shining city in the hill not too long ago, leading the world not just by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. I mean, really, think about it. And not hyperbole. It's the power of our example that the rest of the world has repaired to. Those basic American values that I talked about. But David Brooks again writes about how they're being shredded. They're being shredded by administration that's put its own interest before our ideals. It's about amassing power. It's in order to abuse power. And this Republican Congress, and I promise you, every time we got in trouble with the Congress in the last 8 years of our administration, I'm the guy that went up on the Hill. And I usually was able to settle it because I have great respect for my Republican colleagues as well as my Democratic colleagues. There's a lot of decent women and men up there, but they've been intimidated. This Republican Congress, is choosing party over country. And they know better. They know better, but because of gerrymandering and because of unlimited spending and because this guy controls somewhere like 35% of the public, all of whom are Republicans basically, they're afraid to take him on. Look, Barack and I agreed that we would give this administration an opportunity to get up and running the first year, just like we had strong disagreements with President Bush, but he gave us a year to get settled. But I couldn't remain silent after the horrific events in Charlottesville. I come out of the civil rights movement. My state was segregated by law, to our great shame. That's how I got involved. I never thought I'd ever be involved in politics. That's how I got involved in public affairs. So I wrote an article for the Atlantic magazine about Charlottesville. And I believe as strongly today as I did then. I said, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, we're in the battle for America's soul. That's what's going on. Folks, seeing neo-Nazis and white supremacists skulk out of the dark rooms and literally out of fields carrying torches with contorted looks on their faces. For real, this was literal, remember this. Singing and chanting the same anti-Semitic bile, the same exact words that were chanted in Nuremberg, Berlin, all through Germany, accompanied by David Duke and the KKK, and then, in fact, resisted by people of decency and the alt-right and members of this administration making a moral equivalence between the two. The dark forces and those opposed. It's more than a boo, guys. This is not a joke. This is not damn politics. This is serious. This is about who we are. Did you ever think you'd see that? I never thought I'd see that again. I never thought I'd see a president refuse to condemn outright what you saw. I never thought I'd see a Republican Congress remain silent. I never thought I'd see this moment happen again in this country, but it has. And that's not just what happened in Charlottesville, calling refugees animals, popping up immigrants and African Americans as the source of all our problems, ripping children, infants from their mothers' arms at the border, preying on hopelessness and despair. and communities under great stress. Look at the example we're setting for the world. And as I said in that article, and I mean this in the bottom of my heart, our children are listening. Our children are listening. And our silence is complicity. This is so much bigger than the budget, than health care, so much bigger than any single issue. It's about our soul. And the world's watching. And our reputation internationally is cratering. I was telling Chris, I just got back at the request of the Prime Minister of England to go visit with her, and before that in Copenhagen with 6 heads of state. And you know, I wouldn't reveal the conversation, but the essence is, what's happening to you? Because guess what? When it happens to us, they're in trouble. Madeleine Albright was right. We are the essential nation. Our entire ability to conduct our foreign policy around the world rests upon a transatlantic alliance based on mutual respect and decency and keeping our word. But look what the people in this administration are doing. They're debasing our values and they're ceding global leadership to tyrants and thugs. Standing at the G7, President of the United States and Vladimir Putin, who Chris knows I know well, and taking the word of Putin, a thug, a kleptomaniac. For real, he's probably worth over $300 billion. Not a joke. And guess what? Takes his word over our intelligence community? Engaging in what he called love letters with a flat murderer, Kim Jong-un, who blew his uncle's brains out in North Korea. I mean, seriously. And then, after the cold-blooded murder and probable dismemberment of an American journalist who was here on a visa, he makes excuses before even the Saudis make them to try to protect MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and giving them the benefit of the doubt. Folks, the rest of the world's listening, man. They're looking. They're wondering, what has happened to us? Look at the example this sets around the world. Folks, this is not who we are. America already knows who Donald Trump is. But here's the question. Who are we? Who are we? Who are we, the Democratic Party? I tell you what we used to be. We believed there was a basic bargain in America. Democrats and Republicans subscribe to it. If you contribute to the well-being and welfare of the organization you work with, you got to share in the benefits. That's what built the middle class. But guess what? That is breached. From the end of World War II to 1973, the economy grew, productivity grew 97%. Wages grew 92%. Since then, productivity has grown 77%. Wages have grown 12%. The bargain's been broken. Middle class people are hurting. And with good reason they're frightened. They see this fourth industrial revolution occurring around them, and we don't speak to them. They look out there and wonder whether they're going to have a job based on changes in technology. We had 200,000 more retail workers making an average of $50,000 a year 18 months ago. Average age 50. They have no job anymore and no hope anymore. Nothing out there for them. Why? Not because of anything bad, because of a thing called Amazon. And they don't need the retail stores anymore. We've got to start talking to them. We've got to let them know we understand them. My dad used to say, I don't expect the government to solve my problems, but I expect them to understand it. The middle class isn't a number. It's a value set. I have a lot of economists. I still have 44 employees. And folks, the economists who work for me will tell you, when you say middle class, they'll say $52,400. It's not a number. It's a value set. It's being able to own your own home and not have to rent it. It's being able to send your kid to a park where you know they're going to come home safely. Send them to high school. If they do well, they can get into school after high school, whether it's trade school or whether it's college. Being able to take home your geriatric mom after your dad dies and hope your kids never have to take care of you. That's middle class. Just a little peace of mind. A little peace of mind. But guess what, guys? The middle class is shrinking. Fewer than 50% of the American people think they're part of it. We're no longer the wealthiest middle class in the world. You know, my dad, when we moved from Scranton because there was no work after the mines, after coal died, anthracite coal died. If you listen to Barack, you'd think I climbed out of a coal mine with a lunch bucket. I didn't. My dad was a well-read, high school educated, white-collar worker, but there was no work. So we left. I remember him taking us to my grandpa's house, which looking back on it as I grew as an older man, I realized how much that must have damaged his pride, having to walk and say to his father-in-law, "Can you take care of Gene and the kids? It's going to take me about a year. I'll come home every weekend, but I'm going down to Delaware, and I think I can get established. I think get a place for us." That's the longest walk any parent has to make up a flight of stairs to tell their kid, "You can't go to St. Paul's anymore, honey. You can't play on that little league team. You can't do it. Daddy doesn't have a job." Folks, so many people have been through that. But when we got down there and he finally got us established, anytime anybody loses a job, Chris, he'd look at us and say, "Remember," and I mean this, my word is abiding. "Remember, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck, Joey. It's about your respect. It's about decency. It's about your ability to fit in the community. It's about your self-worth." And then he'd always end by saying, "It's about being able to look your child in the eye and say, 'Honey, it's going to be okay.'" What's the most helpless feeling that a child can have, a parent can have? Look at their talented child and realize there's nothing they can do for them. Folks, too many people are going through this still. And the middle class is the reason for our social stability and political stability. And it's our job to restore that bargain. We've eroded people's right to even bargain for their own worth. I'm forgetting unions for a minute. I'm a big union guy. They've eviscerated unions. But look how far they've gone over the last 15 years. You realize 40 million people have to sign a non-compete agreement? And by the way, the vast majority of them are hourly workers. What possible reason could there be for that other than to suppress wages? A significant portion of the Fortune 500 companies make you sign an agreement saying you will not discuss what your wage is with anybody with whom you work. Why? So you can't say when you find out I'm making more than you as a man, you can't go ask for a raise. It's about suppressing wages. It's about education. Look at the people behind me. The education they fought for and they earned. But guys, 6 out of 10 jobs in America, I did a study for the president, it took a year. 6 out of 10 jobs, about the jobs of the future, by 2020 require something beyond a high school degree just to get a job. Whether it's a certificate, an apprenticeship, community college, or college. And it's getting significantly harder. And what are we doing? Look what Ned's opponent talking about. My God, guys, this is simple. Does anybody think 12 years is enough to make it in the 21st century? And health care. We believe it should be a basic right for all Americans. But it's so far out of reach of so many million Americans, and they want to take it away from those we finally got it. Millions of Americans now understand what the Affordable Care Act and what it means. It's saved lives. It's extended their lives. It's given them peace of mind. It means you don't have to stare at the ceiling at night and wonder, "God, if I get cancer, do we lose everything? Do we lose the house?" Republicans, it's not just about getting rid of health care. It's about a lot more for them. And now, there's over 20 Republican attorneys general who've gone to federal court to declare that pre-existing conditions, requiring insurance companies to cover pre-existing conditions, is unconstitutional. And they're lying through their teeth now. They're lying through their teeth saying they're going to protect pre-existing conditions. Simply can't be done without the funding mechanism of the Affordable Care Act. Folks, let's get this straight. The Republican Party has never fully supported Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. They've always tried to pick at it or move it, but they've not had, they couldn't defeat us on this because the people were with us. But now, what do they do with that massive unfair tax cut that they put in place that generates enormous cuts for the very wealthy and so little for the middle class? By 2027, 87% of all the tax cut will have gone to the top 1%. But folks, it created a deficit of $1.9 trillion. And as Congressman Larson can tell you, I stood in the steps of the Capitol leading the members of Congress, and I said at the time, the reason they're doing this is in order to eliminate things they couldn't otherwise touch. You say, what are you talking about, Joe? Well, you know, they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks. He said, because that's where the money is. Well, let me tell you, everybody knows you cannot sustain this additional deficit of $1.9 trillion. So what are they doing? They're going to eviscerate Medicare. Already, as Congressman Larson can tell you, the Republican Budget Committee has proposed cutting $60 billion in Medicare over the next 10 years. Now, that's the mark, as they say in the House. And then, the senator from Kentucky, the majority leader, came forward and said, because of this enormous budget deficit, here's what we're going to have to do. We have to go and cut the real drivers of the deficit: Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. The president's economic spokesperson said, next year we're going to have to go after these things. And it'll probably be Social Security and Medicare next year. Folks, this is deadly earnest, man. What they couldn't do on a direct fight, they're now trying to use an economic argument that they created in order to eviscerate it. And Ned, that's just what your guy's doing. You go ahead and cut those billions of dollars, $1.9 billion, give it to 400 families. Mark my words, the next thing you're going to hear in Connecticut, we can't afford as much spending in education. We can't afford dealing with infrastructure. We can't afford making sure everybody has Medicare extended under the Affordable Care Act. We can't do that. That's why we can't, because we're going to go bankrupt. Look, this game has been exposed, but there's a simple way to stop it. Elect Ned your next governor. Send Johanna to Congress. Have her join Murphy and Blumenthal to stop this madness. And ask yourself a basic question. Why did you become a Democrat in the first place? My father had a simple answer to that. He said, I can't stand the abuse of power. That's what we're about, stopping the abuse of power. These candidates know who we are. A party of hard-working, decent Americans, a party of access to affordable and continued education, a party that thinks health care is a right. We stand for giving Americans a fighting chance. And you know, ordinary Americans are capable of doing, as I said, incredible things. We're everything the Republican Party is not. And I might add, this is not your father's Republican Party. And it's our job to reset the moral compass of this nation. Begin to stand up for the American story again, of decency, standing up for our ideals. The American people are ready. The rest of the world is hoping we find who we are. The truth is, and I get so tired of Democrats as well as Republicans walking around with their heads down like, woe is me, we have so many problems. Give me a break. Give me a break. We are better positioned to rule the 21st century than any nation in the world. We have the world's most powerful military in history. We have the best research unit. We have more great research universities in the United States than all the rest of the world combined. We have the most agile venture capitalists. We have the most productive workers in the world, 3 times as productive as they are in Asia. Let me say it again. This country has to stand up. We have to remember who the hell we are. Folks, China. I want to see China do well, but China's not, as they say in that steel town I lived in, Claymont, not a patch on our jeans. They don't have enough energy. They don't have enough water. They're talking about $1 trillion project to be able to get water to their population. They're in a situation where they, in fact, have a historic 2,000-year enmity between the coast and the inner cities. And the mountains in the West. They're in a situation where they're in real trouble. They have a kleptocracy. Anybody ever go to Beijing and see someone walking around with other than a mask covering their face? They're dying of lung cancer 4 times the rate we are. There'll be more cancer cases in the next decade in China than all the rest of the world combined. God Almighty, what are we talking about? Why don't we remember who we are? I'll say it again. This country has to come together. There was a headline in the Washington Post this week. It says, Republicans settle on fear and falsehoods as midterm strategy. But I hope in the last 11 days we understand that fear strokes bad behavior. Personal attacks stroke fear. And we need to lower the volume in terms of the personal attacks. We have to be honest about our policy disagreements on health care, education, infrastructure, civil rights. We have to make it clear that we Democrats, we choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division. We choose our allies over our enemies. We choose truth over lies. And we choose a brighter future for America over the desperate grip the darkest elements of our past have hanging onto our ankles. We can still own the 21st century. And ladies and gentlemen, get up! Get up and take it back. It's so much more important than anything else. This is America. This is America. Remember who we are. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.